If there is one thing that I have learned after years of working with private practice owners is that most private practices are actually dealing with way too much financial instability, even when they are sitting on a gold mine of resources. Now, if you have found yourself frustrated in recent months, that probably doesn't sound too crazy for you. Maybe you're dealing with things like slow or non-existent or declining insurance reimbursements. Or maybe you've had more clients than ever who are struggling to even cover their sessions because their deductibles or co-pays have increased. Or maybe you're just really feeling like, why do I have to work so hard to break through the noise in this marketing space? And am I now supposed to figure out how to pay for ads too? There's a good chance that your private practice needs an upgrade, not because your clinical skills aren't working, but because you have a systems issue, a structural problem that is creating the revenue instability that you have. And there is probably a solution right in your own neighborhood that you have not even been thinking about, and that is working with nonprofits. If this is your first time catching one of my videos, my name is Kavalyn Day. I am a private practice director of operations. Our practice has been running for 16 years now. We've done tens of thousands of sessions and millions of dollars in revenue. And part of that has come from our partnerships with nonprofits. So today I am going to give you a little bit of a taste of why I think nonprofits may be the perfect way for you to dabble in the corporate world, even though you don't necessarily think of them as a corporation, how it can be such a benefit for you in terms of generating leads for your business, consistent revenue for your business, and solidifying your position in the community so that you are solid without having to worry about all of the extra pressure from trying to stand out in a crowded market. Now, let me let you in on a little secret, because oftentimes, since our practices partner with multiple corporations, we get people who say, how do we do that? And when people hear the term corporation, they tend to think Fortune 500 or Forbes, some major conglomerate. And that's not to say that that isn't the case, because you can definitely partner with large multi-million dollar, even billion-dollar organizations. But for the most part, that is not where you're going to get the bulk of your business. And it's actually not where I would suggest you start, because honestly, there is so much red tape trying to get between you, the front door, and whoever is actually the decision maker that can cut the check. And a lot of times that process is a 3-month, 6-month, or even a 12-month process before you go from the conversation to actually getting paid. But when you think about small to mid-sized nonprofits, the kind that are all over your community right now, they are an open door, literally waiting for you. Here's why it's so important. These small to mid-sized nonprofits are right in your community. They're local people. They're the people sitting on the sidelines of your kids' soccer field. They're not major conglomerate CEOs who are trying to stay distant. It's actually the people you know in your community. Chances are you have some people who are heading nonprofits in your phone right now. Nonprofits are mission-driven organizations. They have a mission that they are designed and obligated to basically fulfill, and they have funding to do so. They are serving the exact same people who are already coming to your doors. They're serving families, youth, caregivers, marginalized communities. They have their own staff who are experiencing burnout, who are typical average working people who need the exact support that you have to offer. In my experience, small to mid-sized nonprofits typically make their decisions faster. They have a budget that has been voted on by the board, and a lot of times they have a consultant already built into the budget. Sometimes they've identified that consultant already. Other times it's just a placeholder, literally waiting for somebody to come along and pitch them something that meets their needs. But they typically are looking for that person who's going to solve that problem. And they do not have 6 or 10 or months worth of red tape for you to climb through. You can oftentimes get a conversation with a director or a CEO of a nonprofit actually pretty easily. Sometimes they're program directors or clinical supervisors. They are also easily accessible. So in terms of your time and energy, you're not spending a ton of it just trying to get in the door. Because they are typically funded by grants and donations, they are used to working with contractors. So they're not necessarily looking to hire you for some full-time commitment. They are looking to hire you for the specific service that they need, which works really well with your life. But most importantly, because they typically have a small administrative staff, there's just a fair amount of things that they're not able to do, right? Because they just don't have the manpower to do it. Their staff are often stretched very thin. And that also kind of creates this other layer of support. So let's say that you come alongside them to help them with their program operations, for example. Maybe you help design a curriculum for them or give strategic advice on curriculum development for them. That's one thing. But then they also see your office as the perfect referral source. So these people who are rubbing elbows with lots of people who have money and are giving donations know your name, which is a perfect way for your company to have a brand that goes beyond just what you're able to do on social media or even with the directories. Have I sold you yet? So let's talk about what are some of the things that you might be able to do for a nonprofit. I'll tell you a few of the things I've personally done. So I have created a podcast for a nonprofit that I researched, wrote, and delivered, and gave them the license to use. I have provided, one-on-one coaching sessions, one-on-one counseling sessions. I've done professional development workshops. I have done curriculum development where I wrote them out a curriculum and then they implemented it. I have done traditional speaking engagement. So any number of these things can actually be included in a contractual relationship between you and the nonprofit. And some of these things are things that they already are expecting to do this year and just looking for somebody to help support. And others of these things are things that they can actually secure donations for and secure additional grants for. So that if you were thinking like, maybe I'd like to offer some kind of grant offer, some grant sponsored opportunity, you don't necessarily have to write the grant. You can partner with them to do that. So in my personal business and also for our practice, this has generated hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue. No lie. Whether I'm working with the early childhood programs or the social service programs in a couple of counties over, this is not necessarily funding that you would think is like, oh, I have to give them a discount. No, they pay our full fee rate and it is a very reasonable amount of money. So sometimes this is a retainer where it's, a couple $1,000s a month that they're paying regardless of utilization. Sometimes we're giving them priority access, but they're paying our cash rate for services. Sometimes they're paying for premium access and they want us to be on site at their location. Other times when there's something like we're developing a curriculum, I may never actually even have to show up anywhere to get that done. I literally just have to do it from my home office, which you see right here. So there's a lot of different ways to structure this, and it typically fits very well inside your existing lifestyle, meaning you don't have to close down your caseload and you still have this influx of cash. So 3 tips if you want to get your foot in the door. Here's what I would suggest you do. Start with your existing network. Like I said, you are probably sitting on the sidelines of your kid's soccer game with some people who are either in nonprofits or no nonprofits. So if you aren't connected to people on LinkedIn, get connected to them. When you see that they work at a nonprofit, reach out to them and ask, are they, do they have any need for mental health services, or, let them know what you have to offer. Having these types of conversations with people is a great way to organically build your network and organically create relationships where people are thinking of you top of mind when they do have a need. If you have a specific idea, don't think long-term. Don't think about like a 18-month partnership or something like that. Some of our best contracts have started as maybe a 3-month pilot of a particular program. Once they see that you've done a good job, however, they will return time and time again. And my last tip on this is make sure that you're speaking the nonprofit language. They don't necessarily care about a specific diagnosis or your clinical lingo or mumbo jumbo. They care about things like outcomes, retention, and data, because that is what the people who are funding them care about. So when you say things like improved family engagement or decreased staff turnover or increased utilization of services or even on-demand clinical support, those sorts of things make nonprofit ears get all tingly inside, and they love to hear that because it signals to them that you are a partner, just not someone trying to get paid. Those are the kind of things that they want to hear, because very oftentimes when you get in the door with a nonprofit, they will build work around you because they know that they now have the capacity to do it. Now, here's where I want to be super direct with you because I have to put on my coach hat, right? I have to. So many therapists hear me say this and they are convinced that this is exactly what they need for their private practice, but they get overwhelmed at exactly where to start. They're not sure who they should reach out to or what exactly they should say or how they position themselves. And I get a ton of questions about how this can turn into an actual proposal and how much do you charge and what do you offer and those types of things. And what should we include in the contract? All that kind of stuff. So here's what I want to suggest for you. Let me help. Instead of overthinking the offer to the point where you don't get anything done, or worse, underbidding and not charging what you should, being scared about the money conversation because that will come up, or worrying about taking hours and hours to even create a pitch for it to be turned down. Let me walk you through this process. In a strategy session, what we can do is outline the exact path to the right nonprofit for you to get started with this in your exact community, based upon not only the service you want to provide, but also what you want to be known for. Because when you're doing this well, right, you're actually building your brand and your reputation and getting known for this. So you're going to be seen as the expert amongst all the people that see you partnered with this nonprofit. We'll clarify what to offer and what not to offer. AKA, do not overpromise or try to pack a bunch of stuff into that contract. The simpler, the better is the way to go. But a lot of times people feel a little hesitant about how to do that. I will teach you my framework, even show you my exact templates that have been funded for thousands of dollars from nonprofits, exactly like the ones that you want to use. We'll structure out the terms that you can have and how to position yourself. And we can even practice how you pitch so you can get comfortable saying those words. We can do all that in about 90 minutes. So if you're a therapist who wants to get more predictable income from maybe fewer moving parts and have a lead generation system that pays you on the front end and the back end, I really think that corporate consulting, starting with small to mid-sized nonprofits, is the way to go. And I would love to be the person that gets you your fresh start. So somewhere around this video, you're going to see a link to get some information about how to sign up for a slot on my calendar for a 60 to 90 minute strategy session where you'll walk away with everything you need to get started. I would love to see you get that because there is more than enough room for all of us to get what we need.